listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Getting on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
Another episode of Pitch and Moan. I am your host, Courtney Finnicum, and I have a guest today, the Marlins TV play-by-play man himself, Kyle Sielaff. Kyle, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Courtney. It's nice to be with you.
I just kind of want to jump right into it because it's been one of my favorite end of the year stories, has been the Marlins eliminating the New York Mets. It has been something I have watched so closely this last weekend of the year. And I am just kind of obsessed with everything that happened this weekend. Between your calls, between how the Marlins set up their pitching staff. I just thought they went into this so beautifully with the mindset of, you're going to come into Miami and we're going to eliminate you. Was that just sort of the vibe this last week of the season for you guys?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's such a loaded question because I think it was a perfect storm.
Yeah.
So I think number one, Marlins manager Clayton McCullough knew there are teams that are in this position every year where a team that has been eliminated from postseason contention has an opportunity to ruin someone's season. The one thing that I really appreciated the Marlins did was they took their three best starting pitchers and they lined them up. And they didn't just give them a freebie and say, we're just going to run 3 bullpen games out there and if we win, cool. But if not, whatever, enjoy the playoffs. There was a component to that where, hey, our 3 best, and if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us fair and square. And we're not going down without a fight. Look, the other stuff to me is it was a perfect storm because you have shades of 07 and 08 with the Florida Marlins eliminating the Mets. Okay, that was the first storyline. The next is the high-priced Steve Cohen New York Mets versus the lowly Marlins, right? And there's this huge payroll discrepancy. And the Mets who had this slow, steady death for 3 months, just death marching their way into Miami, to take on a team that they don't spend, they don't spend any money, they don't have anybody that makes any money. The Marlins had just taken 3 or 4 from New York at the end of August. And I said it on the air, but they were the better team then. I don't care how much money you make, the attitude and the culture that the Marlins had created. They marched into New York and they took 3 or 4 from the Mets. They got their butts kicked one game, and the other 3, they were flat out the better team. There's no doubt about it. And it was just setting up perfectly for exactly what everybody thought was going to be the case last weekend. The Marlins' 3 best starting pitchers against the high-priced Mets, who desperately need to win some games. And then it all comes down to Sunday, and they shut them out.
Right.
The one thing that I saw that I totally disagree with was the notion that the Marlins and the Mets don't have a rivalry.
I agree with that. Thank you for saying that.
07 and 08,
right.
That, I'm not saying that started the rivalry, but when your division opponent knocks you out of the playoffs in consecutive seasons, when you have the world in the palm of your hands and an opportunity, as long as all you have to do is win. Over the course of 2 hours, you just have to be better for one game, and they've never been able to do it. And I do if it wasn't a rivalry, you wouldn't see so many people talking about this is not a rivalry.
I agree with that. It is. Yep. I actually, that's a perfect way to put it because, like you said earlier, the mighty Mets, the Steve Cohen Mets, they signed Juan Soto for what they signed him with, $800 million, whatever it was, that insane payroll. And then you have a Marlins team that lost 100 games last season. But you said on the broadcast over the weekend, you said, I know it's not going to show in the standings. I know it's not going to show in the record, but the Marlins have been the better team this second half.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that because, as we all know, I'm a Chicago White Sox fan. And I feel you laughed. I appreciate that. But I feel knowing that and having that as a fan at the end of the day, I love hearing that because you always want to hear, you always hear the negatives about your favorite team when they're in that position.
Yeah.
But the Marlins really stepped up. And Lone Depot Park, right? Sold out every single night that weekend. Packed house, a lot of Mets fans. As a broadcaster, this is your first year on the TV side with the Marlins, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Does that elevate your game a little bit more personally when it's a
Oh
packed
yeah.
house, big series? I mean, it had to elevate you a little bit too, right?
100%. I think it does everybody. Like when you
Yeah.
walk in there and there's a noticeable buzz, like
Yep.
it had again, there was nothing at stake for the Marlins, but every game, for the Mets, they were playoff games, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
and,
Yeah.
and for the Marlins and a group of young guys that have never been in the position where like, that I don't recall. I mean, maybe the Yankees games in the beginning of August, but still, you're kind of like the dog days of summer with 2 months left. A lot of these guys have never been in this situation where like the first pitch is about to be thrown and it feels like everybody's about to hang on every pitch. And
Absolutely.
that's felt by broadcasters, by the fans. You could tell it was felt by the players. I thought it was, I mean, obvious for the Mets that, I mean, with each passing inning that they didn't score, you felt like it was just like there was like this anxious nervousness, like
Yep.
this can't be happening again. And, obviously it does. But yeah, I mean, it was amazing. It was awesome. Like, and I'm sure we can talk about it. I know there was the comment that it was the Marlins World Series, but you know what?
Yes.
Like last weekend, it kind of was. And that was an amazing opportunity for a bunch of young men who have never been in this position before. And hopefully they get to that position one day to know what it feels like to play when it matters. And when people are not only are you nervous, but the building is nervous. It feels different. It's much. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody. It's much different than when the Marlins and the Reds are playing in the middle of July on a Thursday
Absolutely.
afternoon. There's like,
Yep.
that's business. That's like, come on, let's see if we can win. Then we'll go home. Like over the weekend, it was no, like we have an opportunity to make sure that somebody's not standing on the first tee with us on Monday morning. We're not going to let them fly to Los Angeles. And that's what the Marlins said. That's what Clayton McCullough said. It was about as pointed as I had heard him all season. He said on Friday in his pregame scrum, our goal this weekend is to make sure the Mets are not flying to Los Angeles after the
Yep.
game Sunday. It's pretty simple.
And that's exactly what happened, right? And
Yeah.
let's get back to that comment that the Mets broadcast booth made. And they're very good. Gary, Keith, and
Oh
Ron,
God.
they're extremely good. They do have a reputation for being very opinionated, certainly. But they're very, very good. And obviously, Marlins do what they did. And I believe they took a team picture on the field. Is that what kind of sparked that comment? Is that what happens?
Yes, and there's context to that. If you go
Please.
back and look at the Marlins social media after every single win this season, whoever they deem were the heroes of the game, whether it was the starter, a couple relievers, a couple guys that hit big home runs, they stood outside the dugout, they took a picture. It, and I'm sure it was their plan all along. Fortunately, they won on closing day that the whole team got in on the photo. Now, the whole thing too, I thought was blown out of proportion. I can't tell you how much I look up to Gary, Keith, and Ron, and I consider Gary a friend. You know what? He is a huge fan of the New York Mets, and I would have been just as salty if I was on the other side, and I probably would have said some things that people wouldn't have liked. But that's also okay because you're televising for the team. Like that's
Yes.
like you care. There's passion. So people, I didn't understand why people were getting upset about that either. It's fine. They said it was the Marlins World Series, and to an extent. I agree with that. And if I was broadcasting for the New York Mets and I was as in love with them as I am with the Marlins, I would have said some of the same stuff. That look at this, just go pack your bags, go home. You beat
Right.
us, just go. Instead of, so what? It's okay.
Right.
It's sports. It's baseball. It was
Right.
great. Like that ticked off one fan base, and the Marlins fan base went nuts, and they were just like, we did it again. Ha ha. See you later.
Yep.
We'll see you next year, and we're going to do the same thing. That's what makes this whole thing great. It's like there's sensitivities to it, and people take it personally when they
They
shouldn't. But
do.
that's what like makes the whole thing great. It's all
I
good. Like
agree.
whatever.
I mean, just seeing like on social media, you mentioned like the Marlins fans going nuts, the Mets fans.
Yeah.
I mean, there was drawing. It's like that's what sports should be. Sports should be fun. And yes, people take it to a whole other level. Like I'm sure some of your calls over the weekend gave you some social media hate from the Mets side, right? I'm sure.
Yes, and guess what? I was leaning into the entire narrative all weekend.
And you should
Like
have been.
every
Yes.
every subtle shot, because I know how many people there are. Okay, there are Mets fans that are watching our broadcast. There's a lot of New York transplants down here in South Florida. I get that. But in large part, I have a responsibility every night that I go on the air to, within reason, cater to a fan base that cares so much about their team. It's a very small but mighty fan base here in South Florida that loves the Miami Marlins, and they have had a lot of heartache over the years. They've been through a lot. So I am a fan like them. Yes, every opportunity that I got to take a little jab at the Mets for just letting their whole season slip away. Yes, I'm going to take that shot, but in a professional manner. And at the same time, can I be pointed about the Marlins and say, you know what? As soon as I said they are the better team, I know what's coming. But who cares? They have been. It
Right.
was also accurate.
It's also accurate. And let's be honest, the Mets were built for a World Series push, right? I mean, they were. They were on paper. They were
Yes.
built for, I mean, they were. The Marlins were not. And honestly, like you just said, that fan base should be celebrating in Miami. They knocked
Yeah.
off, you know, they knocked off the King Mets, the mighty Mets. They should be celebrating that. And I think it was an amazing sort of cherry on top to a very exciting Marlins season, right? Because,
Sure.
like we discussed, lost 100 games last year.
Hmm.
And the Marlins are sort of on a pace now where they have some players. You know, Tyler Phillips comes to the front of my mind. He is becoming sort of the face of that Marlins team, of course, along with Stowers and a couple of other guys. But
Right.
how do you feel about Tyler Phillips becoming baseball's next character guy potentially?
Oh man, he's amazing. And I thought the coolest part of the season was when our sideline reporter Kelly Sacco interviewed him after the game on Sunday. Like, you gotta understand, this is a guy, and everybody has seen it all go viral. He comes out of the bullpen, he slaps himself in the face 3 times. His face is flush red. Like, you see this side of an athlete that is self-admittedly, when it's time to go, he's a lunatic. He's unhinged. He's crazy. He said, I thought he gave a very pointed response to a Philadelphia beat reporter who videoed him when we were in Philly last week. He was like, you know what? Like, this is me and this is going to be me, because if I'm not like this, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to pitch poorly, and somebody's going to take my job and my livelihood, and I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. When he said, because I understand there's a lot of people are like, okay, the shtick's got to go. Like, can we stop with this? Just go pitch.
Right. Like, why do we need a
No,
gimmick, right? Yeah. Yeah.
right. And to an effect, there's a bit of it that's not, I don't want to call it an act, but like that's how he gets himself into a position where he's wired differently for 5 minutes and he can get 3 outs. And he said, like, hey, if I'm not that guy and I just like am very stoic and, unassuming, I'm probably not going to pitch well. And when I'm not going to perform well, somebody's going to take my job, and then I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. You don't really think about it that way.
You do
And then
not.
after the game on Sunday, here was a guy who was asked 2 questions. He was very, very short and to the point, not to a point where it was awkward, but we know him to be very short in the heat of the moment. And then he came back to our sideline reporter, Kelly, after she was done interviewing more players, and got extremely emotional and talked about his team, his
Yep.
teammates, and he started crying and how much this season meant to him. And coming from Philadelphia, the team that he grew up watching, the one he dreamed about pitching for, it didn't go well there. He gets traded here, and he has this amazing year, and he's comfortable in his own skin. It was like, man, I think a lot of guys on the team felt that way. I thought that was a bit of a microcosm of, how the season went for the Marlins, and, how certain guys kind of really came into their own.
I actually really love hearing that because, again, like we discussed, it's sports, it's baseball, but there is a livelihood to this too. These are human
Oh yeah,
beings. These are human
sure.
beings. And yes, on the fan side, they get frustrated, they get angry when your team's losing or when a guy's in a slump. But just what you said about, his family, like that's at the end of the day what these guys care about. I mean, these are human
Yep.
beings. And hearing how emotional he got at the end of the season when how his team came back. I mean, a couple more wins and you guys would have been right in the middle of the wild card race yourselves,
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
It's actually it's a really cool story. And honestly, the psychotic closer, I think you kind of need that again. That was sort of a thing back in the day,
Yes, it was.
Obviously with these closer entrances now, I mean, remember Billy Koch back in the day? He was a psychopath. Like, I love that. The
Yeah.
gimmicky closer, not a terrible thing in baseball, in my opinion.
Grant Balfour with the
That's a
Athletics.
that's right. It's the Australian, right? Australian, and
Yeah.
he was
The
real
headbanging
feisty.
rock and roll music, and he would, fly out of the bullpen that was in play at the Coliseum, and fans would be going
Right.
berserk.
Well, didn't Miami have Heath Bell, who used to slide into the pitcher's mound for when he used to come out?
Yeah, I think he did that like in the All-Star game. That was a
Yeah.
short-lived experience though for Heath Bell in Miami. That didn't go well in
It did
2012.
it did not go well. I'm well aware of that. Did not go too well. Ozzie Guillen was a part of that one, so I'm well aware. But
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, the gimmicky closer. If as long as you're getting guys out and you're having a good time, I think there's nothing wrong with it. And he's getting himself pumped, but you can tell he really did care about his team, and I think that's an amazing story at the end of the year.
Mhm.
So we're talking today. We are officially into the postseason. It is the first day of the wild card series. We talked about the Marlins, a couple more wins, they would have been right in the middle of this. What are some of your predictions or some of your thoughts on going into the postseason with the Reds and anyone else that's kind of interesting to you?
I think it's interesting you say the Reds. I don't know if they're going to beat the Dodgers, but I think they're going to win game one. I think if Hunter Green goes out there and shoves,
Yep.
that's going to put the Dodgers back in a situation where they were kind of in the division series with the Padres last year, where they had to fight back.
Yep.
That's what. Okay, so I think number one, I love that about the wild card round. You could get a total underdog, I guess in this case, the number 3 seed versus the number 6 seed or whatever.
Right.
And if you get one really good pitching performance and you steal game one, it's like, you can go all hands on deck for the next 2 games, make everybody available and get yourself out of the wild card round. And then you can really roll the dice.
Absolutely.
Now, I think the Dodgers win that series, but I'd love to see the Reds win game one. I just think that'd make for a great story. I think that's kind
So
of fun.
so would I.
The
So would
one
I.
I don't know why my gut tells me, and I see them a lot. I think the Philadelphia Phillies and the Seattle Mariners are going to be in the World Series. I love that
Wow.
Seattle story. I think they can pitch. I think their deadline acquisitions of Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez were huge. I think they have big time players, especially under the bright lights in the
Yep.
postseason. Randy Arozarena is fairly unassuming, in my opinion, in the regular season, just a great player. I think he has big moments in the postseason. Josh Naylor has big moments. Suarez is a threat. And, well, obviously, I think Cal Raleigh should be the American League MVP. I hope
Likewise.
he is indeed the American League MVP. And they can pitch their tails off. Like,
Yep.
it's unbelievable. So I think they're going to represent the American League. And something tells me that it's going to be the Phillies. But I have some thoughts on that as well. Like, that Padres team scares me, but I just,
Same.
for whatever reason, I feel like they're flawed, and I couldn't tell you why, which I know is like a really bad take, but just something. It's like
I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying with that.
I don't like. I don't know if I could trust them for the next 2 weeks to work their way through the wild card division and championship round to get to the World Series.
I agree.
You know, I say the Phillies, but if the Dodgers get out of that first round the way they're pitching all of a sudden,
Yep.
I mean, it'd be foolish of me to say, they can't get there again. So
And
I
you can
think it's gonna
never you can never really count the Dodgers out of
that's the
anything, right?
thing. Like
That's
you're
the
a total
thing.
fool if you count them out because Freddie Freeman and Betts and her, I mean, the list goes on and on. It's the same
Otani,
cast,
obviously. I mean, hello.
the same cast of characters from last season
Right.
if they get hot again. And I think I would like to see the Yankees and the Mariners play in the ALCS.
Okay.
Although I haven't even looked at the bracket. Is that possible?
That's I probably should have looked at the bracket
Yeah,
before coming
I
on with
like
you as well, to be
concocted this
honest.
stuff with I concoct this stuff in my brain without even looking at the bracket to see if it's possible. It probably is, but whatever. I don't know. I think there's great team. I think it's gonna be a great
Yes.
postseason. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. And honestly, I really love your Seattle call out. So I have been waiting for 2 seasons for Seattle to finally do something at the deadline, right? Because I love their pitching. I think they have arguably the best pitching in the postseason, but they didn't have the bats, right? So they go out and they get Josh Naylor, who, again, White Sox fan, biggest pain I've ever seen on the White Sox side.
Oh yeah.
Was so glad to get him out of the AL Central. You have no idea. And then they get Suarez, who's just a beast, right? And I'm just like, okay, I'm finally going to see what the Seattle team can really look like. And as we saw, they turn on at the right time. And I so agree with you about Cal Raleigh. I really hope he's the MVP. I have a sneaky suspicion it's not going to go our way, unfortunately, but I'm hopeful. And a team that I find interesting that I feel like when it comes to the postseason just can't get over the hump are the Brewers. I mean, the Brewers were so on fire, in the regular season this year. Love Pat Murphy, but they have shown that when it comes to the playoffs that, they're kind of a one and done team. So I will be interested to see if they can finally get over the hump a little bit in Milwaukee.
Well, here's why I don't think they can do it. Just my opinion.
Okay.
I don't think they have the firepower. I think that to me, that is the best built regular season team in baseball.
Yeah.
Like you can just count on them to win 95 games because they scrap and they pitch well, they defend well, they scrap and claw. They can stress you out over and over again in the regular season. I just don't think they have what it takes in the postseason to get the instant offense, to get the big hit when you need it the most. It's hard in the postseason to string
Yes, it
two,
is.
3, 4 hits together. I don't like it. It's hard to get 2 to 3 singles and then punctuate an entire inning with a bases clearing double. It is so hard in the playoffs because managers are hanging on every pitch. There's always somebody loosening in the bullpen to counteract whatever, you know. I and then my tune would be different if they had a couple big time players where it's like every time they came to the plate, it's like he's going to hit a 2-run homer.
Yep.
I love them. I mean, outside of like, if you told me that there was one team that I could watch every single night in the regular season and I wasn't working for the Marlins and I'm just a casual fan, like I would watch the Brewers. I think they're
agree.
so fun. I think they are enjoyable. I think the culture that they have built, I think everything Pat Murphy's about is incredible. I just think at some point, if they're going to get over the hump, and you're going to rewind this in like 4 weeks when they win it all, but
And
like,
I'm gonna bring you on, and I'm gonna give you crap. You know that, right?
yeah,
I mean, that
like
has to happen.
I just don't know if like they can pitch, they do everything well, but like to me, last year was a microcosm of that team. It's like they did everything they needed to do, and the Mets got one big swing to
One
knock
big
them out.
swing. Yep, I know. I
I
agree
don't
with
know if the
you.
Brewers have that one big swing to knock somebody. I don't know if they can throw like that final haymaker in the 15th round to continue to advance, but we'll see. I just, it's hard. To me, it's just the stringing hits together over and over again in these small sample sizes is so tough.
You've already pissed off Mets fans last week. Now you're
Oh,
gonna piss
yeah.
off Brewers fans. I mean, you're batting 1,000 right now, man. I
Well,
mean, my
well,
God.
again, I want them to know if I wasn't working for the Marlins and doing
Oh, that's
baseball
right.
games every night, if there was one team I could watch, I love the Brewers. I love everything about it. I love that community. I love the town. I love the way they tailgate. I love the
Yes.
way the team plays.
Yep.
It's just it's a hard way to get through the postseason.
And I kind of feel that way about the Blue Jays, even though I've really enjoyed watching. They have sat so quietly on top of the AL East for months, so quietly. And I was actually really happy to see them pull out the division win. I mean, I like the Yankees. I always have a thing about the Yankees. They're, it's the empire, right? But
Mhm.
I was happy to see the Blue Jays. Again, another team that struggled last year that bounced back really nicely. And that I feel the same way about the Blue Jays that you do about the Brewers, even though they have a little more firepower in that lineup with Vladdy and a couple of other guys. But I think I feel the same way about the Blue Jays that you do about the Brewers. I hope I'm wrong because I would love to see different teams kind of advance and get going. But that's kind of how I feel about Toronto. But we'll
Their
see.
pitching scares me a little bit.
Agree. I can see
I
that.
think they're going to score. I would just hate to see them lose like games like 7-6 or 8-7. Like they have the offense to go a long way. If they get decent pitching, they've got a shot to play here for a while.
But I do agree with your initial thought. I have been saying for months that I think the Phillies are arguably the best team in all of baseball. I do see that. They have a top five MVP guy, in my opinion, and Kyle Schwarber, who's had a monster year. I know you've seen him plenty. I'm certain.
Hmm.
So it will be interesting how this all shakes out. Not there's, as we both know, we haven't experienced a ton, you and I, but there's nothing better than October baseball, right? I mean,
Well, I will say this too, Courtney.
yes,
Um, Playoff baseball is a different beast. But if you don't, and all these buildings are going to be rocking, but
yep,
there's a serious home field advantage for the Philadelphia Phillies in the postseason. There's
yes,
something real about that. When the Marlins got there 2 years ago in the wild card round, I have never been in a place that is so vicious, and I really enjoy Philadelphia. But the fans don't just want to beat you; they want to kill you, and they want to watch your lifeless body dragged out of that city. And that is
absolutely.
what it feels like for 9 innings from the first pitch. It is, that is, I mean, I can't explain it, but that the advantage that they have with that fan base is unbelievable. It's not, it's more than rowdy. It's like this anger level of passion where you feel it. It's like, this is not going to go well. It's insane.
Right.
It really is.
So, and obviously the Philly fans have that reputation too, and they're proud of that reputation, which I actually personally get a kick out of.
Me too.
Right, you do, right? I mean, like we talked about earlier in this, like baseball and sports, that's what this is about. It's about passion, it's about fun. And the Phillies fans, when you walk in there and as an opposing team, they want you to know we are literally here to beat you down, and
Oh, yeah.
we want you limping out of Philadelphia, literally and figuratively. And I
Yeah.
love that.
Yes, they want to beat you and dispose of you and not like nothing about it do they want it to be enjoyable. They want you to
Exactly.
stay, they want your stay in town to be horrific and as short as possible and this just dispose of you and just keep pummeling people, which is great. It is
I love it.
frightening.
It is frightening, but I do love it deep down. I do love it deep down.
Oh yeah, me too.
So, one final question for you, Kyle. Again, I really do appreciate you coming on
Of
and
course.
celebrating the Mets elimination. Like I said, I got a sick thrill out of it myself, and I'm just so glad that it was the Marlins that did it. I really, really am. But we talk about the playoffs, we talk about the wild card, particularly that third wild card spot. Marlins were close this year. What do they need to do this offseason to get them over the hump?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, I don't, so I think there's levels to that. You can never have enough pitching, and I think they have
Mm,
really good starting pitching, which is
yep,
great.
yep,
And I don't know if they'll actively go seek additional starting pitching. Maybe like they went out and got Cal Quantrill this year, which I
yes,
thought at the time was the right move, like an innings eater. It just didn't work. It just wasn't the right fit, and that's fine. So you might need to try to find a guy like that to eat innings because there's still going to be some young guys that'll be monitored closely. Um, Given what they were able to do this year, they have a fabulous foundation of young talent. And really up the middle, they're fine. And in center field, at second base and shortstop. The big question is, can Augustine Ramirez get better as a catcher? Because, he needs to. If they don't feel like he can, they're going to need to get a catcher. And I mean, they're going to need to spend money. What can they find a real first baseman? Maybe like an everyday guy. I shouldn't say real because there's guys that did a fine job, but
sure,
I think at some point, like I think they have too many platoon players. That's just my opinion. I think
yep,
they need one more, two more like real solid everyday grinders it doesn't matter who you're facing, righty or lefty, they're on the lineup card every day. But I think with a few additions, maybe a trade here and there, I wouldn't rule out Sandy Alcantara or an Edward Cabrera getting traded. Although the Cabrera one would probably be a little difficult because they've acknowledged that he has an elbow issue, that he actually feels good. He pitched on Sunday and he
right,
did a fine job. But I'm not sure if they tried to trade him if a medical would clear, but that's really none of my business. But you could trade like a Sandy Alcantara,
yep,
and the way he pitched in the second half, not only are you going to get somebody's like top prospects, they're going to be seeking major league talent, and maybe that nets you the first baseman you're looking for and a third baseman. Um, so I guess that's a long way of saying I think there are a couple of moves and small minor things away from seriously being a contender for that third and final wild card because the minor league system that they have is as deep as it's ever been. And I mean ever, not just in the last few years. They have a young man by the name of Joe Mack, who's like the best minor league catcher. The kid is ridiculous. He's going to be up next year. They've got some young starting pitching that's got like the best left, two of the top three left-handed pitching prospects in baseball. Like they're ridiculous. So
Yeah.
I think they need to fortify the whole thing with some veterans that'll really help lead these guys. You know, when times are tough and you've lost 6 or 7, how do you get out of it? But they're a lot closer than anybody thought they would be at the end of this year. To have the conversation that maybe a couple little things here and there, and they're legitimately going to compete. I think that's so freaking cool. So I'm pumped about that, and I can't wait to see what they do this offseason.
You mentioned Sandy Alcantara, and we were talking about postseason earlier. I thought at the deadline that the Cubs would go after him, and I thought he'd be a very good fit here in Chicago and kind of take the Cubs to the next level in this push. So I was actually a little surprised that the Cubs didn't make that move because I think they would have some pieces that could complement the Marlins potentially with what you were saying they were looking for. But they had a very weird deadline, the Cubs, so that didn't happen.
I could see them revisiting that this offseason. I still think the Cubs
Yep.
are a great trade partner for the
Yep.
Marlins for Alcantara because I know that they had taken a liking at one point to the Owen Casey kid, and that was public. That's like
Yes.
not me
Yeah,
saying
that's a
anything
no.
people don't know. But I know like Michael Bush or Matt Shaw's name was out there too.
Yep.
But
Yep.
if you want Sandy Alcantara, and he could very well put them in a position where they're the favorites to win the National League Central next year if they acquire him, they're going to have to pay up. Like it's going to be a very hard deal for somebody. But if you get what we saw in the second half from Sandy, the deal's going to be worth it for both sides. But whoever makes a deal, if they do, and they don't have to, which is the
Right.
great thing, somebody's gonna have to give up a lot to get a lot. But that's the nature of the beast. That's the business.
That is the business. And honestly, it will be a very interesting offseason for the Marlins, but most importantly, it'll be a fun postseason regardless.
Hmm.
And listen, Kyle, I think you now know that if the Brewers are in the World Series, I'm bringing you back on here and you're going to have to apologize profusely to the Brewers fans.
Okay, I'll do that. But again, one of my favorite cities. I love the Midwest. I love their food. I love the team. I love what they're all about. Don't hate me. I'm just a little worried. I just did a couple big swings, and I could be back on here in a couple of weeks.
Well, that's what we want, right? I mean, we just want a fun postseason. I'm excited to get it going, like we talked about. Honestly, nothing better than October baseball. And
Oh, great.
as a fan, I want to be back there so badly. I love it, and let's strap it down. I mean, first day, so I'm excited. I know you're excited, but most importantly, Kyle, congratulations on a very exciting last weekend for
Thank
for
you.
you and the Fighting Fish. I mean, really
Yes,
one of
yes.
my favorite stories this year. So you guys
Thank you so
should
much. Thank
you
you.
guys should feel very proud of that.
It was
So.
awesome, Courtney. Thank you.
And thank you for coming on with me, Kyle. It was a pleasure. And we will see how the postseason shakes out.